Tuesday the 8th of December 2020 at 4 p.m. I'm going to hand over now to Stephen to go through members' attendance and apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just do the register. So, Councillor Jason Barr.
Here.
Councillor Raymond Barr. Here. Councillor Michaela Boyle.
And Shaw, Stephen.
Councillor Michael Cooper.
Shaw, Stephen.
Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Emmett Doyle.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Mary Durkin.
And Shaw.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Rachel Ferguson.
Here.
Alderman Darren Guy.
Here.
Councillor Lowe.
Shaw.
Councillor Aileen Mellon.
Shaw.
Alderman David Ramsey.
Here.
And Alderman Graham Wark.
Here.
Thank you, members.
Thanks, Stephen. The next item is the statement for remote meetings. I would like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website. Next item on the agenda is declaration of members' interests. So if you could just pop those into the chat box, that would be appreciated. Next item is Chair's business. You'll be glad to hear I don't have any items as such. Cue the sort of collective applause of all the members and staff. But I would just like to say this is our final business and culture meeting of the year. It's been a difficult year. It wasn't the year that we had planned initially, and we had to cancel or sort of reduce many cherished events, and they couldn't proceed in a normal manner. But I do think this committee has responded in a positive manner to support businesses and cultural organisations throughout this city and district. So I would like to extend my thanks to the officers, the committee staff, the staff in IT and media, and obviously to the members themselves for your contribution over the last 12 months. And I wish you all a very safe and enjoyable festive period with friends and family, and we will meet again in January. One member has contacted me about raising an item in Chair's business. It's Councillor Doyle, and it's regarding cafe licences. That ordinarily sits within E&R, but as there is a sort of business aspect to it, I feel that it is appropriate that it's discussed today. So take it away, Emmett.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd just like to associate myself with your comments with regards to staff and members. As a new member, the staff have been very helpful to me. Just on the item that I contacted you about, Chair, I'm sure a number of members are aware of this because I know that it was widespread throughout social media that a certain business in the city had felt that the application for pavement cafe license required them to submit architect's drawings, which they would incur a massive cost for. We know, of course, the great work that our licensing and business support unit does. We can confirm, of course, that that isn't the case. And I'd just like to propose, if I may, that in order to clear up any of this confusion that there seems to be around this process, that maybe we get something out on social media with regards what is required for these types of business support. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Doyle. Stephen, would you like to respond to that, please?
Actually, Chair, I was going to let Kevin come in on that. You know,
That's fine. That's fine.
Kevin, come in. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. No problem at all. No, and I do appreciate Councillor Doyle's comments, and it is worth clarifying. Obviously, whilst this is a licensing issue, it's not necessarily a business and culture issue. There is a crossover in terms of how we're dealing with the businesses and the business community. And I think what we did when we first became aware of the social media was we responded directly to the business, and there was concerned to clarify that no, there wasn't a need to submit architectural grade drawings to get the pavement cafe license. Clearly, there is a need to ensure that health and safety, a risk assessment is taken into account, and that does entail the need to sketch out what it is you plan, but it doesn't need architectural grade drawings and shouldn't be costing £1,000. Now, in terms of businesses who are in receipt of the COVID revitalisation grant, they also qualify for, funnily enough, support to if they need to do anything via planning or if there's a pavement cafe licence required. So they actually qualify for support from council to actually do that. So we've gone back via social media to clarify that already. We're updating our webpage and our business support information to make sure that the businesses know that. We are keen to ensure that the business community understand that we're trying our level best to support them through these difficult times. What I would say is that the fast tracking of the pavement cafe licenses was welcomed broadly by the business community at the time, and it's something that hopefully will add great value to your towns and city centres.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Councillor Riley, you'd like to come in?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Kevin for the response. It was just, I suppose, to put that on the record. It's good to hear, Kevin, what you've just outlined in this public forum. I know that it had got raised on social media. Myself and others have been tagged in it. So I just want to thank yourself and Stephen for the responses that you've given to date. I think that clarification in this forum is welcome, because there will be businesses that would have seen that social media post that may not have. I've got the response that had been given to date. So outlining that today in committee, I think has been useful. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Riley. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you for allowing me a member of committee, but I've declared an interest, as through my business I have achieved a pavement cafe licence, and can reiterate the fact there was no need for architectural drawings. Sketches drawn by myself, measured sketches, I should say, seem to be sufficient. So I fail to see where maybe this is coming from. There may be another issue if there's an application for perhaps an awning or something like that, along with the pavement cafe licence. But I don't think for the actual application for the pavement cafe licence you need architectural style drawings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Derek. So Councillor Doyle's asking in the chat box, do we need a seconder for the proposal? So the proposal is what again? Would you like to just clarify that, Emmett?
I'll put it in the chat box here, Chair.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Doyle, and Councillor Durkin has seconded that. I would imagine nobody is going to speak against that, so I would just assume unless anybody wants to put in the chat box that they don't support that proposal, that the business team, in conjunction with Health and Communities, will take that on. Is that okay?
Yep, that's no problem. Thank you.
So next item on the agenda is the matters arising from our previous Business and Culture meeting. They were adopted as accurate at full council. So has anybody anything that they wish to raise in matters arising from that previous meeting?
Chair,
Sorry, Graham. Sorry, Alderman Mark. Councillor Doyle has indicated in the chat box, so I'll let Councillor Doyle speak first, and then yourself, Graham, if that's okay. So, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to item BC 155/20, proposed meeting with Invest NI and the Department for the Economy. I know that obviously the sub-regional support and grant, and growth issue is one that's important to us all. But I have to comment that the lack of sub-regional action is actually policy from the executive, and let's be very clear about that. You know, we don't have a programme for government at the present time to direct any kind of sub-regional policy, and the draft current programme for government refers to regional balance. So I know that parties like to come in here on a regular basis and point out about all that needs to be done about sub-regional policy, but the Economic Advisory Group a number of years ago put in writing very specifically that they did not feel that sub-regional growth was a priority. And this was when, as is the case now, the DUP and Sinn Féin were and are the majority members in the executive. So I want to make very clear, we can do all this jumping around trying to make headlines about sub-regional policy and all the rest, but it is policy of the executive. So if these parties that like to go on and on about sub-regional growth and policy want to actually do something about it, then there's a draft programme for government waiting on their sign-off, and it will only be changed, and the current policy will only be changed if they change it. So let's not get pulled into any of these discussions around people trying to have some sort of faux outrage about sub-regional policy when it's the two largest parties in the executive have maintained it and will continue to maintain it until such times they actually change the policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that commentary there, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Cooper would like to come on that.
Thanks, Chair. There's no faux outrage on my part, and we're very, very clear in terms of our approach to Invest NI and the department's approach to the Northwest. It's not good enough, and we've been having the meetings and discussions with Invest NI, and I'll be taking a lecture from Emma Doyle about what we've been doing around economic development, and we'll be following up on this in the next couple of weeks. Further meetings with Invest NI, and very, very specific. In terms of the sub-regional strategy, back of it, we've lamented on that for years, and he's absolutely right. It is a ministerial guidance in terms of Minister will take that lead. Diane Dodds hasn't taken that lead. We've been very clear that she should. But the MDNA, a new decade, new approach is very specific in terms of a very dedicated and targeted intervention being required in terms of Northwest, not just in terms of the economy, but in terms of higher education as well and other areas. And we will be using that in every single forum that we can to raise the case that we need special treatment, to be blunt, for the Northwest because of the economic figures that still pertain here in terms of long-term unemployed and other skills-based issues. And we're doing the work, we're doing the slogging behind the scenes. I'll not be taking a lecture from Emma Doyle about economic development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. And I would just like to sort of comment on that. The reason that Invest NI and the Department for the Economy are coming next month is it has come out of a motion which came out of an Invest NI delegation that presented to our committee in Strabane in February last year. Myself and Councillor Cooper were very critical of their performance in this council area, along with others. And we accepted that Invest NI work within the policy that is determined by the Economy Minister. We have called repeatedly for Diane Dodds to appear at this committee. She has instead instructed senior officials within her department, i.e. Invest NI and DFE, to attend. We know that this needs a policy change on Stormont, and that is what we are asking for. We are asking Invest NI and the DFE to do this. I don't know what they're going to come back to us with in January, but if we need further meetings with the Minister, we will be asking for that. So, Councillor Doyle, you've already spoken on this, so I'm going to move on. So the next indicated speaker is Alderman Wark.
Thank you, Chair. It's reference BC 157/20 and it's funding support for the arts and culture heritage sector. Now, Chair, you've mentioned this quite a bit and I totally 100% agree with you, and that's why I'm also bringing it up again. And it's more or less what I see was the unfairness which you mentioned about the projects were handed the 620,000, and obviously it was, as you said, it was Belfast. Now, yes, there are flagship projects happening there, but we have flagship projects happening here in the Northwest, and all we're asking here, and I think it should be coming through this committee, is more or less openness when it comes to this type of funding through the Department of Communities. Now, I don't know, Chair, if you requested it, but I do feel a letter should be sent from this committee to the Minister on obviously the impact on the arts and culture sector down here. And I know council officers and council staff have been working tirelessly with these projects that you see on the minutes on these organisations. But what I'm requesting is a letter goes to the Department of Communities Minister for fairness on these organisations, and more or less openness when it comes to the funding, and also they support our flagship organisations, arts organisations here in the Northwest. And that's a proposal, Chair.
Thanks, Alderman Wark. I raised this very issue at full council. My ask, which was supported unanimously by all members in the full council, was that we write the Arts Council and we write to the Communities Minister to ask around the process for the allocation of this £620,000, how the organisations were identified, what the application process was. A further output of that motion was that we convene a meeting with local cultural partners to get their views and opinions on the challenges that the COVID presents for the local arts and culture sector, the wider impact on society, and their thoughts on the support that is being offered by central government. So your proposal, that was passed at full council, basically.
I just personally find it's very important. I've been contacted by a lot of these organisations in the past while, and I do feel it's very important that there's more or less an openness here of fairness towards the Northwest when it comes to the art and culture. And obviously, yes, I am echoing your words, but I feel it's very important to keep raising this, and also they put pressure on the Arts Council and the Department of Communities Minister when it comes to fairness way giving out this funding. But I would like to just finally say definitely well done to our officers for the support they are giving the organisations there. But thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alderman Wark. There's already a letter going to the Department for the Minister for Communities on this very matter. I don't think we need to send two basically identical letters on the same matter. So you supported this in full council.
I'm happy enough to propose this committee, and more or less it is the will of the Minister, more or less the fairness, openness of that 620,000. I know you mentioned about it, but it was Belfast. I could name the MAC, the Crazy Arts Centre, the All-Star Orchestra, and the Lyrics Theatre, and that totaled £620,000. Now, I think a letter should come from this committee here as well as the full council. I'd be glad to send letters. I know I'm the one always crying about the amount of letters, but something needs to somebody needs to come in here and support these organisations.
What I'm saying, Alderman Work, is Council is writing to this very person. I don't think we need to get a letter from Council and a letter from Business and Culture. I just think it's unnecessary duplication.
Well, I'm happy enough to take that, but I'm glad the matter's been raised here once again, and it just obviously keeps it and everybody on their toes on it to push this.
All right, thank you, Graham, for that. Derek, you wanted to comment?
Thank you, Chair. Just a very brief comment. Totally support the original motion in Council and indeed Graham's proposal here. But sometimes I wonder, what we're talking about here is Belfast-centric organisations which seem to garner in a lot of the funding, I suppose, because they have these so-called flagship projects in the Greater Belfast area. But I think there's also a case of position he lies self here. We in Derry City and Strabane District Council need to also realise, yes, there are flagship projects in the northwest, mainly based in the city, but let us not get going forward those small organisations out in the wider settlement areas of the entire district council. So if it applies to Belfast v Londonderry, it similarly applies Londonderry v the rest of the district council area. Just a comment, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Eric. And I totally agree with you. The issue, and I don't want to labour this point, there have been a number of schemes announced by the Arts Council and DFC that organisations, individuals and venues from across those sectors can apply for. The issue with this particular announcement was that there was no clarity at all in terms of what scheme it came from. And that is part of the letter. So there's this stability and renewal scheme, there's this emergency resilience program. I am sure there's lots of organisations across our city and district that have applied for that have followed the process, that are potentially waiting for the outcome of their funding application. But we had this announcement, I think it was on the 12th of November, that just came out of the blue. It was just, there's 4 organisations that all happen to be in Belfast, and to me, there seems to be no apparent process to it. So that's what we're looking to tease out with DFC and the Arts Council. So we just need clarity on that funding and how that was decided, and why there were no organisations outside of Belfast that benefited from it. But I take everybody's points on board. Is that okay, Graham? Yeah. Are you happy enough with the approach from full council?
I'm happy enough from the approach from full council, and obviously just what you said there, and that's where it's just a bit confusing. I think there should be more openness, and I'm just glad it was raised again. I know our council officers are doing everything they can on that, so they are, but I'm happy enough to move on that, Chair, and look for the response from full council as well.
Thank you very much, Graham. Would anybody else like to raise any other matters from the previous meeting? Right, I take that as a no. I'm having some IT difficulties today, so it looks like we're on to item 7, which is the Council COVID Confidence Scheme. And to take us through that, we've got the Head of Business, Kevin O'Connor.
Thank you, Chair, for that. Members, the purpose of this report is to seek your endorsement on the development and launch of a COVID-19 confidence scheme to assist businesses to reassure customers that their business is COVID-19 secure. Basically, the background to this scheme is around helping business to adapt to the rapidly changing nature of the regulations and the guidelines and obviously crucially, once businesses open up again on Friday, following the latest circuit breaker. So between Council's environmental health team and business teams, we've been obviously out on the ground working with businesses since the onset of the pandemic in March, trying our best to assist, give advice, give guidance, obviously also from an environmental health perspective, in terms of they've been obviously enforcing the various regulations and that type of thing. Clearly, the regulations have changed on a month-to-month basis, and it's sometimes difficult for the businesses to understand what's relevant at that point. So the purpose of this scheme is that we're able to augment that advice and to sort of more formalize it. It's in addition to the bespoke mentoring that's been allocated to businesses in terms of trading online and the various different programs we've delivered there. And clearly, members will also seen the really successful campaign that the marketing team have been spearheading in terms of Shop Local. There's a really strong and positive voice out there now in terms of the media around shopping local, and hopefully people will be able to continue to shop local in a safe manner over the coming weeks in the Christmas period. So the scheme itself will be simple by nature, making it as easy as possible for businesses to sign up to. It's based on the Federation of Small Businesses COVID Secure Advice. It basically asks businesses to complete a questionnaire online via Council's website all around COVID safety. Upon completion of the questionnaire, uploading of a risk assessment, businesses will then be furnished with a letter of certification in terms of the scheme itself. Obviously, environmental health officers will be very proactive on the ground over the next couple of weeks once the circuit breaker ends, helping businesses to navigate and giving out advice. But this will basically help those businesses to understand what necessary steps that they need to take to ensure that they are COVID safe. So there's a small marketing budget of £1,000 identified to promote the scheme, and the recommendations actually for members to endorse the scheme and also note the comments of the report.
Thanks for that, Kevin. So we have 3 indicated speakers in this item. The first one is Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kevin, for that report. First of all, I'd like to propose we accept this report, but I would like to just commend all the work that has been done about that, and it's good to see that there is a budget, albeit small, to promote it. But as you say, the marketing team have been doing an excellent job, especially with the Shop Local campaign, and I think that is definitely paying off. There's just one question I have, Kevin, and it's not actually to do with this scheme, but I just found that this is the only place maybe I could ask it, and if you haven't got the answer now at the minute, it's okay, you can come back to me. It's just on businesses and getting their support grants. Could you just, I know you have and the team have been working with a lot of businesses, and can you just maybe just give us a wee update, if you can, regarding how that's been all rolled out? Has that money started to, and I know there is things that people have to do, and there's workers behind all those application jobs, and it's not just a simple matter of pressing a button to submit your application. There's all processes has to go through, and as I said, it's workers at the end of the day that's working on those schemes. But if you could please just, from Council's knowledge and the businesses that you have been working with, has that money started to flow through? Thank you.
Do you want me to come in now then, Chair? Yeah.
Well, that's fine, but Patricia, you could have raised that in the minutes because we had quite an extensive discussion in the localised restrictions support scheme at the last meeting. But work away, Kevin.
So no, thanks very much for the endorsement of the report, Councillor Logue, and I do have an update in terms of the localised restrictions scheme itself. So yeah, I mean, you know, what I would say is that yeah, the money is flowing and has started to flow for the majority of businesses. That's not to say that there are not businesses who are still working their applications, that are working their way through the system. So last week we actually engaged at a very senior level with LPS just around our outstanding queries. And I would say is that for sure LPS have allocated a good amount of resource to dealing with these applications, but you can understand the sheer volume of them. And in some circumstances, just in terms of trying to follow up on missing information and data and making sure that the application process is done robustly. So we are now have now got an ability to on a weekly basis collate the information that we're getting from the various businesses and then submit that back to LPS to try to fast track any queries. So they've been very, very helpful in that regard, and we continue to do that. And what I would say is that obviously for any business that's waiting on its grant, definitely contact the business team. We'll take the details down and we'll try to continue to work on their behalf. We do understand that it's a worrying time if you don't know if you've been successful or otherwise you're waiting on an appeal. In answer to your question, majority are being dealt with. There's still some outstanding, and we're doing our best to try to get those through the system.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for that, Kevin. So next indicated speaker is Councillor Doyle. Emmett.
Thank you, Chair. I seem to be on a bit of a social media rant at this, but I noticed a fantastic idea had recently been raised just this week by the guys behind Pure Dairy with regards to almost an Amazon site for dairy businesses where people could go on and buy local wares. And I know just in 2.2 that people are being mentored and their online presence being developed. I'm wondering if perhaps, Kevin, you would be open to maybe making contact with Kieran, or I could put you in contact with him to see what support maybe we could do on a collective basis here, because it really is a fantastic effort, but also complements the Shop Local initiative. Thank you.
Okay there, Kevin. All right, cheers. Councillor Cusack, Shauna.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to take this opportunity very quickly on behalf of the SDLP, at the end of what you've already said, it's been a very, very difficult year, to commend Environmental Health for their COVID response. They have been really, really proactive in dealing with public concerns that I've been alerted to, and therefore alerted them. And I know, they're limited in what they can do and what powers they have, but they were extremely proactive, extremely professional in dealing with businesses which were causing concern. And also noticed that they were replying to emails and working outside of normal business hours, late at night, Sundays, weekends. So that has to be noted, and a big thanks and appreciation to them for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna. And Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Kevin, thanks for the presentation there. Just want to ask, with the localised restriction support scheme, it's come to light that the finance department has indicated that sports clubs will now not be included in the payout. Have you heard anything about that?
If I'm honest with you, Councillor Guy, I haven't, but we can follow that up for sure. I wasn't aware of that, to be honest.
I know that there's a couple of cricket clubs are waiting in payment, and they've heard nothing. And there was actually them heard today that there's a possibility that the finance department might have decided upon this. I think there is another sports scheme going out, but there's a worry that a lot of clubs would miss out, because the last scheme that came out like that, there was a lot of cricket clubs missed out and got nothing.
look, I can follow up specifically on that query and come back to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Alderman Hussey, quick question to Kevin.
Thanks for the opportunity. And like everybody else, I can only, on a personal level and a representational level, thank our business team for the work that they're undertaking at this present time. It may seem a strange question, but I suppose it's responsibility to our electorate. I'm aware of one but a couple of businesses that operate in Donegal, but the owners actually live in Northern Ireland and Strabane area. They're having difficulty accessing support for their businesses, which are in the Republic of Ireland. They are electors in our district council area. Is there any way that our officers can assist residents of our district council area when their businesses are actually operating in Donegal? Sorry, Kevin, I don't mean financially assist, but perhaps put them in the direction of the correct contact in Donegal that they should be dealing with. Your equivalent on the other side.
I think you've just come up with a solution, Derek. I mean, no, what I was going to say was, look, we certainly can. We have a very close working relationship, as you'll know, with the local enterprise office and which operates out of Donegal County Council, and we can certainly get their details, share them with our colleagues in the Leo. The schemes they're not the same, but there's many similarities between the different schemes that are available in both Donegal and in this council area. So no, look, if we've got the details, we'll share them with Michael Tunney and his team in Letterkenny. No problem at all.
Really appreciate it, Chair. Thank you, Kevin.
That's great, Kevin. Very helpful. And final indicated speaker on this item is Councillor Duffy. Sandra.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and I'm not on the committee, so I appreciate it. I just wanted to come on and comment, Kevin. I think that this report is really welcome, so it's just particularly on the report, and congratulate yourselves in terms of the whole Shop Local campaign. The website that has been set up, how it has linked to existing pages in terms of my own page, the Shop Local Dairy Strabane, and then the Dairy Virtual Market, the Strabane. It's been bringing everything together in a really good, positive way. And I know from talking to local businesses over the last couple of months that they're keen now to get back up and running in terms of Christmas. And I think anything that we can do to encourage consumer confidence in getting out and getting back into shops has to be really welcome. So I certainly will be sharing this stuff on social media as well to make sure that the public know that there is going to be COVID security around the shops and around shopping, so that people feel as safe as they can getting back out and into shops. I know that I have been in contact with Environmental Health this week as well, to make sure that these businesses are operating in a way that they are adhering to all the regulations. So my thanks as well goes to Environmental Health, and particularly just yourselves, Kevin, in terms of business and culture and what you have done around the Shop Local campaign. It has been really good this year, so thank you.
Thanks for that, Sandra. So just in terms of housekeeping, Councillor Logue proposed this. Emmett, did you actually second it?
I think I did, but if I didn't, I'm happy to.
All right, cheers. Okay, thank you. So next item on the agenda is the Piece 4 tourism update, and that's from the Head of Culture, Aileen McCarter.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to give you an update on the Piece 4 Peace Tourism project. You'll be aware that this is this project activity of the Piece 4 project is the Piece 4 Natural Connections, and it's obviously funded by the Piece 4 programme, and it's been led on by the Tourism Development Department in Council. You'll know the background to the Peace programme, so I won't go through that. But this project is part of the Shared Spaces and Services priority area of the Piece 4 programme. A key deliverable of the project clearly was to bring together communities, community tourism, cultural and historical tourism, and wider mainstream tourism and specialist facilitators to produce, pilot and promote peace tourism experiences suited to the local, international and national market. The project has built relationships between organisations across the city and region, focused on 2 large animation programmes of venues and attractions, funded work in maritime and migration heritage, and also helped organisations develop key skills around digital marketing, infrastructure funding, and tour guide and volunteer training. The report sets out the elements of the programme that have been to develop key skills, which included the digital marketing course. Small infrastructure grants of £2,500 were given to 11 organisations through the infrastructure programme. The last element of the development programme was the tour guiding training, which was delivered to a number of groups who participated in the programme. Originally, the funding allowed for an associated marketing campaign for the project to promote, as part of the project, the tourism experiences that had been developed. But following the COVID-19 outbreak, it was agreed with the SEUPB that we would adjust this to develop, I suppose, a legacy of it. We weren't going to be able to do the marketing programme within the project, but there was an adjustment made to the programme to develop an umbrella brand and things that would last beyond the project that the experiences could take on. So tenders were issued for copywriting, brand development and website development in July. Successful companies were appointed. The brand development has now been completed and has been agreed by the steering group for the project. So it's outlined in Appendix A. You'll see it there, A City for Peace. The experience developed are in line with the story plan work, which members will have seen that we've done. We did a number of years ago together with Louise Brown. The experience are they're set out in the report. They're focused around the island of Derry, Plantation City and Crucible City. So tours have been developed, obviously encompassing the venues that have participated in the programme. They're walking based, and the proposal they're focused on being rolled out in 2021, when hopefully visitors will be able to visit venues and focus specifically on these particular eras of history. So it's expected, obviously, that this will be a key driver of footfall into the venues as part of these tours. And as well through the new visitor information centres, these will be an excellent addition to the visitor pass. All of the programme activity detailed was included in the Piece 4 tourism budgets with no additional financial ask from Council. There was extensive consultation with our own marketing department and the Piece 4 tourism steering group. So the companies that were awarded the work and virtual assessment panels, obviously SAT McCadden was awarded the brand development. Workhouse, a small typo there in the report, some of you may have picked up. It's Workhouse, not Warehouse, where the website development, Excalibur Press, the copywriting. So further work has been done now to see how the brand can be applied in venues and online, how it fits with existing brands within Council, and also particularly how it sits now with, in the wider context, particularly Tourism Northern Ireland's new Embrace the Giant Spirit brand. And officers are working to develop these experiences utilising the core tourism development budgets. So members, you're asked to note the contents of the report and amendments to the original project to allow for the development of the brand on the website, to approve the developed brand, A City for Peace, and to approve the allocation of budget to support the final development of experience and marketing collateral to align with Embrace the Giant Spirit and be ready for market, hopefully in spring 2021.
That's brilliant, Aideen. Thanks very much for that. There are no indicated speakers. Well, we do now. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Aideen. Can I just ask, just with regards to the marketing programme, is that very specifically for those who had taken part, or for those venues, for example, that had taken part in the programme, Aideen, or is this part of our overall tourism offering? Because obviously there are a lot of cultural and historical sites, obviously, that don't have or are not connected to specific venues. So just looking for a bit of clarity on that, please. Thank you.
So I suppose the marketing programme was to promote the experiences that were developed as part of the programme. They tended to focus on venues that participated in the programme. They were the key, I suppose, groups of the package. That's not to say that in the actual product or walking tour that other elements of that story won't be incorporated. But it tends to be that the venues and groups who participated are venues and groups that are out there that have an existing product and are looking to bring people across the door. But clearly they're walk-in packages that have been developed. So there'll be other elements that will come into those tours within those themes. if that makes sense. I hope that does. I hope that sort of answers your question.
Is that okay, Emmett?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Aidan.
All right, cheers. So Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aidan. You probably can guess where I'm coming on this, Aidan. City of Peace, or City for Peace. And I'm looking at three elements there: the island of Derry, the Plantation City, and Crucible City, and specifically looking at the first two. My concern is, the concentration on city. Whereas if I look at island of Derry and what is focusing on the early Christian heritage, I mean the Christian heritage, for example, of St. Eugene's Cathedral. Eugene established the abbey in Ardstraw before the cathedral, or before his connection down to the city. So there's an obvious connection there through to that. Also from that abbey in Ardstraw, you've got the Christian pilgrimage trail along the Derrick Valley right up to Loch Derrick. And I'm looking at this and saying, well, that's part of the Christian heritage of this council area. So is there a concentration in the city specifically, or is the opportunity that it will become a district-wide project? And I know that within the shared spaces element, sections of the Derrick River Walk are being developed in and around Castle Derrick at the moment, but I'm thinking about the entire heritage walk that might be possible there, and that is being looked at. And if you talk about the siege, surely yes, the concentration was on the walled city, but there are other elements. There are other elements related to the siege, such as the crossing at Claddy Ford, burning Newton Stewart. Very many issues that could be brought in to that idea of the siege relative to the Plantation City. So I'm wondering, is there the potential that this goes beyond the city? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Derek. Would you like to respond to that, Aidan?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, and I suppose the response is very similar to the response to Councillor Doyle's query as well, in that this was obviously a peace programme. It was to some degree dependent on the participants who sort of signed on to the programme, but everything about it has been developed to, particularly in things like the walk-in packages, they're all developed to be built on. And the expectation is that they will all be built on as we take them forward, I suppose, as mainstream tourism development products, that they can be built on. They're all representative. The focus, I suppose, has tended to be on the city, because that's where the majority of the organisations and the groups who participated in the programme were based. So I suppose they have to start somewhere, but they're all based on being able to be extended. And they're all thematic, as you say, and quite rightly, as Alderman Hussey, as you point out, those themes stretch right across the city and district. So that there's definitely scope and potential, and I think there would be every intention to expand those products in line with what we're trying to do right across the tourism strategy which is to drive visitors right out, right across the city and district.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Aidan. I'm sure you realise that a watching brief will be kept on that as it develops. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Cooper. I'm aware that we've had two speakers and nobody's actually proposed the item yet.
Because Chair, I was going to actually say, because I know we've seen the chat box in terms of declaring a pecuniary interest at me as my own private company, providing tour guide training and tours. I trained the venues in this project, so I won't be proposing or seconding for that reason. I put it in the chat box, wasn't sure if it had been noted there at the start, so it was just to raise that. And just in terms of some of the queries that have been raised by Councillor Hussey, it was venue-based. I know that in terms of largely venue-based and city-based, but I agree completely. I've guided a lot of groups in Newton Stewart, Strabane, all areas focusing on the siege, in particular James II's involvement in those areas and those locations, use of those areas. So I mean, that's just one example. So I think there's definitely scope to widen it out. And the other thing around widening this out around wider sort of tourism promotion, the visitor passport that Visit Derry are now developing will be hopefully rolling out in the next year. And that's to sort of join up as many venues as possible so that they can basically all be linked into one ticket that you can buy that allows you access to multiple venues in the city. And a whole lot of these smaller venues in particular that have taken part in this programme, but also rural venues would be able to, or will sign up to that, because that'll increase footfall even further. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Councillor Cooper. Emmett Doyle has indicated in the chat box that he's happy to propose, and I'm happy with that. So next indicated speaker is Councillor McCann.
Shall I unmute there, Eamon?
Sorry, I was at the wrong screen. Yeah, I've confused myself by having more than one screen open. I just wanted to make a point, which is not a direct question, nor is it a criticism of anybody, but it just strikes me that we should make room, in these things, whether it's in signage or in any other way, for the fact that what happened in Derry in relation to the siege and the plantation and so forth, and particularly the siege, didn't just have an Irish or a Northern Irish dimension. We tend to forget, perhaps, and understandably so, perhaps, that what happened at Derry, Aughrim, Enniskillen and the Boyne was not just a contest as to who would rule or what group or religion or faction would rule in Ireland or over parts of Ireland. It actually was part of a great European struggle. You know, the conservative historian Lord Macaulay reckoned that the Battle of Aughrim, and Aughrim was the most decisive battle, in many ways, not Derry or Enniskillen or the Boyne. And Lord Macaulay reckoned that the Battle of Aughrim was one of the most decisive moments in the history of Europe. And what was at issue there, for that period, was whether we would have the king in Parliament, was monarch in Parliament, but the phrase at the time was the king in Parliament, or the divine right of kings. These were the two great ideas which were in contest in Europe at the time. And it does seem to me to be reducing and limiting I could say the same about other aspects of Irish history as well, but this is the one we're dealing with now, that we are limiting ourselves and we're underselling ourselves. Whether we are underselling ourselves in terms of tourism is one thing. Whether we are underselling ourselves in terms of the significance of our history, I think that that's absolutely clear to me. And I'm just making the point. I don't have any practical suggestions at this moment, short term, as to how we should recognize that and represent it. But I think we should recognize it and should represent it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor McCann. So Councillor Doyle has proposed it. Have we got a seconder? Can I second it, Chair?
It's Rachel.
All right. Cheers, Rachel. Thanks for that. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the NI Women in Enterprise Challenge 2018 to 2021, and we have Kevin O'Connor presenting that item.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to seek your approval to move to fund the Year 3 of the NI Women in Enterprise Challenge initiative. You'll be aware over the last number of years, Council has been a participant in this programme, which is led by Women in Business NI. This year's programme consists of a number of different elements. I'll not go through all the details of the paper, but there's obviously the key information is in terms of the pitching competition. There's 20 applications per council, 10 pitchers per council itself. The scheme will run a number of webinars. We all love our webinars these days. A range of workshops in addition to the webinars. The second element of the scheme is going to be around the Explore It concept itself, which will really focus on kind of mentoring and buddying support, intensive half-day workshops, evening sessions, working in small groups, and just really intensive kind of mentoring. The next element of it is going to be around selling it a residential, depending on COVID and restrictions and that type of thing itself. So we'll allow the cohorts to come together to collaborate and to really look at reinventing themselves and their business. So it's quite an extensive program itself. This is the final year of a 3-year commitment that we have entered into in relation to women in business. The details of the costs are there, and the recommendation is that members approve our participation in the 3rd and final year of this program.
Thanks for that, Kevin. So the first indicated speaker is Councillor Mellon. Aileen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The report and acknowledge the work Council the figure much more I think when we look at the key like single candidate for that's great.
Thanks for that, Aileen. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Doyle. Emmett?
Thank you, Chair, and absolutely want to echo what Aileen had said, and absolutely valid points. What I would have wanted to ask just Kevin, and I'm not too sure whether we have any input into this, but with regards to the applicants or the people taking part, the women taking part in this, is there a way that we can influence that so that young entrepreneurs, young female entrepreneurs in particular, are given a certain percentage of the places on this program, or is it just a matter of the program is set by Women in Business and we're there just supporting it? Because I'm just thinking it's been obvious over the last number of years that a lot of the entrepreneurs in the city who are female started off with an idea when they were younger. So I'd like to just see if we can support them in some way going forward, so that we have a growing number of young entrepreneurs who are able to progress their ideas in the future. So welcome some input on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, they have they do have a criteria, and it's obviously a competitive application process, but they do target, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but they do target a cross section, you know, in terms of female entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurship itself, you know. So we promote the program itself, and our messaging looks at the different cohorts too. So we have you know, whilst Women in Business deliver the program, certainly it's up to council and to our stakeholders to ensure that the right audiences get to know that it's actually available, and encourage as many people to apply. One of the reasons we got involved with Women in Business back what, nearly 3 years ago now, in relation to trying to focus on female entrepreneurship, was also because we were finding in terms of our programs, you know, we were overly subscribed in terms of obviously male, but you know, we weren't getting enough young people through. So that was one of the reasons why we way we got involved with these guys, we'll evaluate the program after year 3 and see how we get on and see where the gaps are and try to come up with something. We always want to innovate and get better, so it'll be interesting to see what the figures bear out at the end of the program. But certainly, yeah, we can do that, Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Kevin. So next indicated speakers, Councillor Ferguson. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair, and I happily second the proposal. I don't think it was seconded there. Obviously, echo Aileen's comments completely. I think whenever you're looking at a report where it says that our overall average is 3%, and the goal is to try and get like the rest of the UK at 5.5%, there is barriers to women in all our aspects of life here, and even I said it recently at council where we only have 27% representation here in the chamber itself. Kevin, just a quick one. Obviously, what we find with not everyone, but a lot of women don't feel like they have the confidence to put themselves forward to this. Is there like a support beforehand for application for someone who might think, "Oh, I'm not good enough for that," or "I'm a bit not"? Is there like do yourselves reach out just quickly? But it's a fantastic program, and hopefully after the 3rd year we will have another one that will nearly double that number or that percentage. Hopefully, thank you.
Thanks for that, Rachel. I see that Councillor Cusack in the chat box is saying happy to welcome and support for another year on behalf of the SDLP. So thanks for that, Shauna. Aileen, as the proposer, wants to make one final point. Take it away, Aileen.
Thank you, Rory. Just talk about the place of the question when we're talking about women in general that are we can important. It's not there would be in favor of support gender, so we from women in business first, and we all looking at the age for women business people there that type of support systems are looking for life and work. The entrepreneurs, it's a program and was at the youth program not stay first. To become specified
Okay, Aileen, thanks for that. So that's that item concluded. Next item is item 10, which is the Decade of Centenaries, NI 2021. And we have the Director of Business and Culture, Stephen Gillespie, to present that item.
Thank you, Chair. And members, the purpose of this item is following the paper that we put through committee in, I think it was October, and then the recent motions in council. It's been referred back to this committee, and the recommendation is that we consider the motion, consider the paper, and we convene a meeting of the Decade of Centenaries Working Group, which has been provisionally booked for next Tuesday, subject to agreement of members today. So that's the recommendation from the members. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Stephen. We've got a number of indicated speakers, the first of which is Councillor Barr. Jason.
Chair, I'll just jump straight on here just and ask that just accept the proposal that this goes on to the working group for the Decade of Centenaries for further discussion. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Alderman, do we have a seconder for that?
Give a second, Chair.
Thanks, Shauna. Alderman Ramsey, you've got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm seeking clarification from our legal team on 2.3 of item 10. There's an ambiguity in the text as far as I can make out. It's not clear, as it states the motion was passed and also agreed to refer to committee. And the reason why I'm asking for and requiring clarification is it states
there are no implications for council, but this is an equality issue as far as we know. That has implications. So I would like clarification on that 2.3 from our legal team, please. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I see Philip Kingston's on the call. Would you like to share your knowledge and expertise with us, Philip?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Alderman Ramsey makes a fair point in relation to that, and apologies, I have worded that paragraph 2.3 clumsily. What I should have said there was the fact that the motion was passed back to committee for consideration. So the motion currently, there is no motion that has been passed by the council at the present time. The position is that the motion following the call-in was referred back to this committee for further consideration. The proposal is that the committee would refer it into the working group for its consideration to report back to this committee, who will ultimately then put a further proposal back to full council for consideration at that stage. So that's the process at the moment. So the paragraph 4.1 states that there's no implications for council at this stage, and that's because at the present time there is no proposal which has been passed by the council, which would have implications for the council at this stage. It'll ultimately be at a stage when the council comes to a conclusion in relation to this matter, that there would be the possibility for screening, etc.
Thanks for that, Philip.
Chair.
Does that provide the clarity that you wished for, David?
Thank you. That totally clarifies. As I said, there was ambiguity in the text, and thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Not a problem. So next indicated speaker is Councillor Ferguson. Rachel?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to labour too much on I know this has been well debated. The recommendation, I'm hoping to propose a slight amendment. I know that this is basically, we've been talking around the equality of this, so it literally is, I'm going to put in the chapter that we just add on at the end to ensure equality for all events covered by the decade and centenaries, including the NI centenary. Thank you.
I'm just going to take a few seconds to read this, and I'm sure everybody else is paying attention to it as well. Would you like to speak to that, Rachel?
I think it speaks for itself. I know we got embroiled in the whole conversation at the last meeting, and we want this to go. I want this to go back to committee and be talked about in a respectful way. So purely, it is that to highlight that for this to go back to the committee, that we respect the equality with this centenary as well as the previous centenary. So that's the only reason I've put this forward.
Okay, I see that Alderman Warwick has seconded that. Can I ask Philip for an opinion on that, please?
Yeah, Chair, I suppose the only comment that I would make in relation to it at this stage is that the recommendation was basically to refer this back into the Decade of Centenaries working group, and it wasn't a longer recommendation with any other considerations in relation to it, in the hope that we could get into the Decade of Centenaries working group as quickly as possible, without any recourse for any proposal from this committee to require further ratification by full council. I'm just conscious that once we start amending the recommendation in relation to this report, we may in fact be delaying the progression of this matter by requiring the matter to go back to full council for further consideration at this stage. So that's my only comment in relation to it, but clearly it's a matter for members how they wish to take it forward.
Thanks for that opinion, Philip. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Derek? Yes?
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit bemused by Philip's interpretation there, because the original recommendation still has to go back to council. So what's the difference in the original recommendation going back to council vis-a-vis the amended recommendation going back to council. And I think the amended recommendation is far clearer and to the point. Thank you, Chair.
Alderman McClintock.
For letting me in. I'm not a member of this committee. I think the amendment as proposed by Councillor Ferguson and seconded by Alderman Wark really should be one that we are considering, because it's important that that word equality is in there. As I'm sure most members will be aware, we have been in touch as a cross-party group of 3 parties with the Equality Commission, who are certainly very interested in the process to date. So I think it is certainly very important that we ensure that that word equality is in there on that amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Doyle, apologies for missing you.
You're okay, Chair. It's really a point of clarification, and maybe either Stephen or Philip can do this, because I've had a number of conversations with some stakeholders since this was discussed at the call-in, and I want to get this nailed down very quickly. And I know, in fairness, Councillor Cooper had done the exact same at council, but I want it on the record for this committee. So for the officers, a very easy question: is the centenary with relation to 2021 at the present time being treated differently to any other item that was in the decade of centenaries list? So, for example, 2016, has it been, at the current time, your understanding of what council has agreed, is 2021 being treated any differently to any other decade of centenaries item? So if you could get some clarification from an officer on that regard, please.
So either Philip or Stephen, if you could respond to that, please.
Chair, the only proposal which is currently live within council is that proposal which has been dealing with all of the centenary groups or all of the centenary issues from now, or from the inception of the working group, sorry.
Is that the clarity you were looking for, Councillor Doyle?
No, Chair, and maybe it's the clumsiness of my wording. At the present time, are we as a council proposing to do anything different in terms of the corporate policy of council than what took place during other events with regards to centenaries? Because my reading of it is that that's not the case. But I'm seeing a lot of public commentary saying, for example, that the 2021 centenary is being treated differently, and that's not my understanding. So I would like some clarity on the corporate position as outlined in full council.
Chair, do you want me to come in at that point?
Please do.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll be able to provide the clarity that's required in relation to that. There was a proposal which went through full council, which was called in on the basis that it was felt that that proposal caused some confusion as to whether or not this NI Centenary 2021 would be treated differently from other centenaries. Because that proposal was called in and referred back to this committee for consideration, that proposal has no effect, and therefore the currently active proposal is the one which has been operated on by the council from the outset. However, the proposal has been referred back to this committee for consideration, will have to be considered by this committee through the working group, and then ultimately back to the committee and back to full council. So I can't comment on how that proposal will ultimately work itself through. But the clarity which I've sought to provide is that the currently active proposal is the one that has been in place from the inception of the working group.
Thanks for that, Philip. Does that clear that up, Emmett?
Absolutely, Chair. Totally clears that up for me. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you. Alderman Ramsey, I know you've already spoken, but you haven't spoken after Rachel's amendment, so I'll let you in there.
Chair, well, I seek clarification, and I think I could maybe give some clarification this time, because the clarification that I got was clear that the motion is now at abeyance, basically, right? Because this has been referred back, and we are basically working on the agreement of 2015 for the centenaries. But the issue here is that it has been treated differently already, because there was a motion put that was basically had a serious equality issue, which we all know about now. So there's already been a difference. There's already been a difference towards the centenary of Northern Ireland. And that's the only clarification I want to give. But the last clarification we got there now, on the back of, who was it again? Councillor Mellon, was it? Basically, it's more clarification again that the corporate position of council is as it was in 2015. And that has basically been cleared up here tonight, which is very, very helpful and very, well, a lot more positive. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Councillor Boyle, John.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for letting me in. Clearly, I'm not a member of this particular committee, but I have taken a specific interest in this matter because I am the SDLP representative on the Decade of Centenaries working group. And it's on that basis that I want to speak to the amendment as proposed by Councillor Ferguson. Chair, the SDLP made it very, very clear in relation to our position at the last full council meeting. We are only interested in moving forward on the basis of equality and respect, etc. And those are the matters that we would be intending to bring through the discussion in the Decade of Centenaries working group. Now, to my mind, and with all due respect to the amendment from Councillor Ferguson, which I actually do agree with, on this particular occasion, I don't feel that it's helpful to continually amend at this point, because these matters really should now be moved as proposed by Councillor Barr and seconded by Councillor Cusack. They should now be moved to the Decade of Centenaries working group for all of those considerations to be dealt with, and I expect that they will be. So I'm simply speaking to the members of this committee to, on this occasion, let's expedite the matter, because this could go round in circles forever. The next time it comes back, someone else could potentially have another amendment. It'll never get to the working group. In order to expedite it, we need to bring this to the working group, where many of those sitting on this committee actually are represented and representatives, and talk it through there and bring back recommendations to this committee so that this committee can then make recommendations to council. That is the cleanest, fairest way of dealing with it, in my view. And so therefore, just to support the proposal put forward initially as proposed by Councillor Barr and Councillor Cusack, I don't think there's any benefit in delaying this any further.
Thanks for that, John. There's clearly not sort of unanimous support for Councillor Ferguson's amendment.
Chair, can I come in with
two seconds, Gary. So after Gary speaks and after Rachel clarifies, we may need to go to a vote on this, but Gary and Rachel are the final two speakers.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not a member of the committee, but thanks for allowing me to come in here. Chair, look, it's not often I would agree with Councillor Boyle, but you know what he's saying there, I think he's hit the nail on the head. You know what this committee is attempting to do is dictate to the working group, and I'm not a fan of working groups either. I see them as sometimes being used to kick things down the road. But if people are going to start putting amendments to this and tying the hands of the working group, then it's going to cause a lot more difficulties. Fire it back into the working group and allow them to do their job.
Thanks for that, Gary. So final speaker on this item is Councillor Ferguson. Rachel?
Thank you, Chair. And I'm not trying to postpone or curtail anybody. All I'm trying to say is that basically I wanted to put the amendment in so that equality was in there. A lot of people have come to me after the full council and after the call-in to understand the position in which we're taking. People are thinking that this is a debate purely on whether or not you agree with celebrating or commemorating the centenary. It wasn't a debate for that. It was a debate on whether or not, in my eyes, that this centenary be treated exactly the same way, status quo, as the previous centenaries from the 2015 corporate position. So that is why I've put this amendment in, just because it's our corporate policy to have equality for everybody. So I wanted that word to reassure people currently watching that equality will be at the forefront when these discussions happen. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Rachel. I'm conscious that the Councillor Cooper has indicated that he wants to come in, and I'm conscious that nobody from Sinn Féin has spoken on this item. So, Mickey, work away.
Thanks, Chair. Again, I know this is going round in circles. I mean, what has been proposed by Councillor Boyle and seconded by Councillor Cusack is, I agree, is the cleanest approach. In terms of the use of the word equality, I'm going to reiterate this for the millionth time. Again, not to labour the point, but from our perspective as a party, and we said this from the very start, and we'll be saying this in the working group, that the approach that we should be taking to the 2021 events should be the same as we took to the 1916 events, whatever decade of centenary event that we've been dealing with over the last number of years, that external groups can apply for funding. We don't do anything corporately. All of that is as far as we're concerned. It is the status quo, and that should apply again. Councillor Donnelly's motion, and I said this at previous council, Councillor Donnelly's proposal in terms of the wording of it was ambiguous, whether for good or bad. Not for me to say, but we voted for it on the basis that it wouldn't change our corporate policy around centenary events, and we will reiterate that again at the committee when we discuss both Councillor Donnelly's proposal and also when we will happily propose that, like previous years, money will be made available for groups to apply for, whether they celebrate or critically evaluate events in terms of 1921. But we will be doing it corporately as a council, which was the same approach we took in the 1916 events around the Rising and Solomon Honour events as well. So I just want to put that record again for the millionth time. So our approach is we come at this clean, because the thing about equality, people are, we put this thing around equality. It almost suggests that we have to put it in because this council otherwise will be treating the 2021 events differently. From my perspective, we won't be. I'm very, very clear. And just to make a point as well, because Councillor Donnelly, even on social media, flagging up the fact that we had agreed that this should come back under the working group. I mean, Councillor Gallagher's on the working group. Councillor Donnelly might say he's not a party colleague when it suits. Councillor Gallagher in previous working groups supported the idea that money would be made available for groups to bid for. They celebrate some events in terms of and rising events and all of that. And if Councillor Donnelly is saying that that's not his approach to 2021, he should say that. But as far as I'm concerned, Councillor Gallagher, any speaking points he's had on this in general around decade of centenary events has been that there should be a system whereby people can apply for money. We don't do anything corporately. If that's not Councillor Gallagher's approach now, he should say it. Councillor Donnelly seems to be suggesting that. We won't be supporting that. We'll be supporting the idea money can be applied for from groups from both sides. We don't do anything corporately. And I think the way it's worded initially now, they bring us back to the working group is clean. Let's do it in that basis and get a very good result coming out the other end next week or in a few days' time. And then we'll put this issue to bed, hopefully. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Cooper. Alderman McCready had already indicated that Mickey was going to be the final speaker, and a number of your party colleagues have commented on this item. There isn't agreement on this. There is a variety of opinions on this amendment, so we're going to have to go to a vote on this. So, Stephen, could you take us through that, please?
Yeah, no problem, Chair. So I'll just go through in order. So Councillor Jason Barr.
Against.
Councillor Raymond Barr.
Against.
Councillor Michaela Boyle. Michaela. No. Councillor Michael Cooper.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Against.
Councillor Emmett Doyle.
Against.
Mary Durkin.
Against.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
Against.
Councillor Rachel Ferguson.
For.
Alderman Darren Guy.
For.
Patricia Luke.
Against.
Councillor Aileen Millen.
Against.
Alderman David Ramsey.
For.
Alderman Graham Work.
For.
Stephen, I don't know. I wrote in the chat box, I'm against. I'm having problems here with my.
You're okay, Michaela. Thank you. Chair, that's 10 against and 4 for, no abstentions.
Thanks very much for that, Stephen. So Councillor Ferguson's amendment falls. So the proposal from Councillor Barr and seconded by Councillor Cusack is on the table. Do we need a vote on this? Is anybody voting against this? If parties could indicate, or do we need to go through another vote? Right, so Sinn Féin are happy to support, Alliance are happy to support, SDLP are happy to support, N2 is happy to support, DUP, UUP, you made your mind up? Raymond Barr happy to support. DUP happy to support. UUP?
I'm having trouble typing today, so that's okay for me.
All right. So thanks for that clarity. So there is unanimous support for Councillor Barr's proposal. So in my view, we move on to the next item.
Yeah, Chair, is that me on the public artwork update? Or you?
Well, my iPad had gone into hibernation due to that extended item. So you are in fact correct, Aideen. It is item 11, the public artwork update.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. So, members, this is a lengthy and detailed report. I'll try and summarise it as best I can, but it relates to, I suppose, three things. One is the Stitch in Time artwork, which you'll remember came back into this committee in November. So just to give you an update, there was some delay in that work being done. So as you know, the Stitch in Time piece of artwork needs some work done. And we have revised the cost. There was a delay, and obviously in February, then there has been following the February and the start of the pandemic, there was an extended delay. So we just thought it was prudent, as part of this wider report on public art, to refresh our memories and to put in some of the revised costings, which I'll cover in the report. It's also to seek your approval for the initiation of an inspection regime across the council artwork portfolio. And members, it's also to give you an overview of the estimated costs associated with the repair, replacement of the lighting at the Let the Dance Begin artwork. And you'll be aware that is in particular response to a request at full council for an update on the costs in relation to the lighting repairs to Let the Dance Begin. So you'll know that in July 2019, members to this committee, you were presented with a report in relation to the recommissioning and ongoing maintenance requirements for the public artwork portfolio in the council area. The estimate regarding recommissioning costs for the entire portfolio was calculated at £257,800, with an annual maintenance schedule of estimated at £76,339. So beginning in this financial year, Council established an annual recurring public artwork recommissioning and maintenance budget of £20,000. You'll also be aware then in September 2019, you're presented with a report in relation to the cost implications for the retention of the Stitch in Time artwork. At the time, Property Services identified this cost at £12,350. This was in addition to the estimated annual recurring maintenance cost of £4,950, including the annual agreed licence fee. This brings it up to an annual fee of £6,950. Officers also were asked to contact the relevant statutory agencies following that report in both September and also the previous report, the September and November report. So we followed up in the November report, just outlining that we had asked the relevant agencies and none were forthcoming with support for the public artwork portfolio. Property Services have compiled a revised cost of the repairs to Stitch in Time artwork at £13,900. This represents an increase of £1,550. But the report, all Property Services have also estimated the recurring annual maintenance cost for this installation now to be £2,300. So that will be required annually over the next 2 years to cover maintenance and inspection costs, in addition to the annual licence fee of £2,000. But a full relamp in year 3 costing £11,600, which will coincide with the original 10-year estimated lifespan of the work itself, which you'll recall in previous reports that it was to be recommissioned, expected to be decommissioned, I suppose, in 2023. It had a 10-year life cycle. The Let the Dance Begin piece of artwork, as you'll know, is a piece by Maurice Harron that sits on a site adjacent to the Strabane bypass. The artwork was commissioned to mark the transition to the new millennium. The recommissioning and maintenance schedule associated with the report identified costs required to retain this artwork, services and environs in full order. So the Let the Dance Begin sculpture, in addition to the Alley Theatre, has been utilised as one of the key locations that has the potential to fulfil the delivery requirements associated with the asset illumination policy in Strabane. Currently, the application of coloured light to the artwork requires Property Services to install gels on the existing uplighters at a cost of £200 per site visit. So, members, the final cost for the completion of the Stitch in Time is set out in the report. It's clear, though, that the annual public artwork maintenance budget is £20,000. The estimated annual recurring cost for the Stitch in Time piece alone is £4,300, excluding the planned relamp in year 3. Property Services will be initiating a full inspection regime across the artwork portfolio to commence in 2021-22, including the electrical, structural and site inspections. These inspections are a critical part of the required health and safety process and will be the priority for budget spend in 21 and 22. The exact costs for this inspection regime are unknown at this time, but will be drawn from the annual public artwork maintenance budget. So the Let the Dance Begin artwork has 5 fittings that are currently out of commission and are beyond repair. The options and costs for the replacement of the uplighter units at the Let the Dance Begin have been estimated at Property Services and are set out in the report. So I mean, you can see clearly the options sort of go from basic to all singing, all dancing, 50 to 60,000 pounds, which will allow for remote change of colour and, you know, a full refit of all of the uplighters. As the Let the Dance Begin piece has become an established and preferred site to satisfy the requests from the asset illumination policy, it's preferable, but any replacement solution does incorporate LEDs at the very least. And however, it's worth noting, it's important to note, at this time there are insufficient financial resources to meet the cost defined for any of the options associated with LED replacement. So, members, you're asked as part of this report is to approve the additional cost relating to the recommissioning works required for the Stitch in Time piece, cost of which is now £13,900, to approve as a priority spend the initiation of a full annual inspection regime by Property Services across the council artwork portfolio. And you're asked to note the lighting options available for the Let the Dance Begin public artwork. Officers would recommend that either option 3 or 4 is agreed subject to budget. And as has been outlined, the maintenance budget for 2021 has been largely utilised, but officers will discuss funding with the lead finance officer subject to agreement with members.
Thanks for that, Aileen. So there's 3 recommendations there. Additional funding for stitch and time, a full annual inspection regime across our entire public art portfolio, and around future options for Let the Dance Begin in Strabane. So first indicated speaker is Councillor Barr. Jason.
You, Chair, for letting me in, and thanks to you for that report. First of all, I'd like to commend Council for the work they've recently done there at the Tinnies with the cutting back of the hedges, the benches been put in place, and also the rubbish bin's been put in place. It's now a much more welcoming area. But as regards to lights, unfortunately, due to the recent light up of the council buildings, the Tinnies just haven't been up to standard on this, which is rather disappointing, as I say. But so I feel that option 4, so I'd like to propose that council go with option 4. However, I would ask that another update is brought to this committee on whether in the long term option 3 may be a result in savings. So if I could propose that, Chair, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Boyle. Michaela.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And apologies, I'm not sending my video because it interferes with the audio, so you can hear me, but you'll not see me. No, I suppose just like Jason, I want to also thank Council for the recent work that has been carried out at the Tinnies, at the Let the Dance Begin sculpture. It's great. We all know that the Tinnies now is indeed an iconic feature in Strabane. They have grown in popularity right across the island of Ireland and further afield. And it's just noted that the Christmas tree this year makes a very added asset to the area. And obviously we want to build on that year on year. There are parts of the city that just for example outside the Guildhall where they have the sleigh and families go there and get their pictures taken, and it's nice at this time of the year to be able to do that given the restrictions that we're facing. And the Tinnies in Strabane is a much loved, as I say, iconic area where people are flocking to, and it's great that we have the seats there for the better weather and that we can sit out. But I would like to second that proposal to go for option 4. I think in the long run, we have to think long term, and it is now becoming more and more of a request coming through for council to light up different parts of council, their buildings, their artwork and that. So in the long run, I think going for option 4 would be the better of the options. Like Jason said, it is disappointing that the lights are not there. They're not working. Obviously out of our control because of the way they are. But I would, and I know everything's at a cost subject to budgeting, but I would be happy to propose that a report does come back on this, because I think maybe after Christmas, once the whole notion of Christmas is worn off and the Christmas tree is down, people will be asking, and they have been asking us as elected representatives in Strabane, why is the Tinnies not lit up? So it is a wee bit disappointing from that aspect. So I'd be happy to second that proposal that we would go for option 4. Thank you, Aileen, and thanks for the detailed report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Michaela. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Cooper. Mickey.
Thanks, Chair. Just in relation to stitch and time, first of all, I mean, we've been going around this saga for several years in terms of getting it back to the condition that it was in 10 years ago, but on a more sustainable basis. I mean, I've had council carrying out works in the past to it. Again, because of the condition of the overall structure, the relamping that was done then wasn't something that was going to last long term. We've had all sorts of issues about getting access to the structure as well. So the fact that now we've got a game plan in place, not just for maintenance, but the complete relamping in 3 years' time, so it actually does outlive its original sort of time scale around being in place, is all the better, because the people have become so used to it, and it has become an iconic piece of artwork and visible across the wider city. So very, very happy that we're seeing work on that. Just on the wider audits, if you want to call it that, of the art portfolio across the city and district, I think that's absolutely key, because there is so much of it. A lot of people don't realise it, in particular don't realise how much of it is actually the responsibility of council. And having that done, so we have a much clearer picture of what the ask is and what the requirement is going forward. I think it's absolutely key we do that now. And in terms of then seeking support from external sources, whether central government or otherwise, it means we have a much clearer picture of what the financial ask is. So we're happy to support all three proposals, and Michaela obviously has already seconded the Strabane proposal around Let the Dance as well. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mickey. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Ferguson. Rachel?
We're having a bit of technical issues there. Well, thank you very much. And Aileen, thank you very much for the report. Obviously, these are much loved, iconic art pieces, and it's always great to have them illuminated. I was literally going to just ask a quick question, because obviously within the options it referred to depending on changing the colours and request to change the colours on certain aspects of how much that cost. So I was going to ask a question around how often that does happen, but with Councillor Barr's proposal for a report to come back on option 3 and option 4, I'm happy to wait for that. So, but thank you.
Cheers, Rachel. So next is Councillor Doyle. Emmett?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be a Philistine here, and I really don't want to be, but I'm looking at some of these figures, with regards to option 3 and 4, and look, I know that with regards to the tunnies, they're not in an area that I live, and I understand that people in Strabane value them, but we're talking between 40 and 60,000 pounds here, and we only recently lauded rightly the work of some of our officers in securing £50,000 for a hardship fund. So I really have to question spending this amount of money on lighting, and I genuinely don't want to be the Philistine of the piece here, but when we're talking £50,000 for a hardship fund, it's going to have a material impact on people's lives, and between 40 and 60 for lighting public art. It doesn't sit well with me, but I do recognise that, and the tunnies in particular have a real special place in the hearts of people in Strabane. I suppose with regards to the Stitch and Time piece, it's the same query, and maybe Aileen can help me a bit with this. I suppose one of the questions I wanted to ask was, with regards to the continual maintenance, rather than just a relamping, obviously there's a lot of impact from being out in the open air as well. Is there any kind of remedial work that we can do without damaging the piece that would reduce the overall maintenance cost for a Stitch and Time? And just with regards 5.2, I'm happy to support that, but 5.3 I would have to abstain, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmett. Aileen, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so members, you may recall in the previous reports we had set out in detail the various options that we'd looked at for Stitch and Time. Obviously, even the relamping itself and the ongoing maintenance the costs are quite extensive, mainly because one of the issues we identified the cost was the proximity of the piece to the edge of the roof. So it requires quite a lot of safety equipment and various other things that I won't embarrass myself by going into the detail of now. But one of the things that there was detail in the previous report, so I'm happy to share that with Councillor Doyle, and I know that the other members in the committee will have seen the detail on that. But one of the options we did look at was moving, like physically moving the piece further back on the roof. But when we looked at the costs of doing that, it was a major piece of work that would have outweighed the ongoing maintenance costs. So we think if we want to keep the Stitch and Time piece, these are the best value costs that we can do. But I appreciate the point that Councillor Doyle that you're making. But we have actually looked at those options previously and looked at sort of ways around it and ways to bring that cost down.
Thanks for that, Aileen. Next indicated speaker is Alderman Ramsey. David.
Thank you, Chair. There's no doubt about it. It's a lot of money, as already been pointed out. But these aren't just artworks. These are landmarks that we're talking about here. And we do need to make them visible, not just for ourselves, but obviously for our tourist industry as well. So the DUP will be a supporting option for, and obviously a full report as well on all our pieces going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Councillor Cusack, Shauna.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm just conscious that while Councillor Barr already gave our recommendations for Tinnies, just want to say that we do approve 4.1 and 4.2. The Stitch in Time sign, no doubt, has become a very much loved iconic landmark now, and one of the very few current testimonies we have to our manufacturing history in that, and obviously hopefully we will have a lot more going forward. But it is expensive. It's unfortunate. Art is expensive, but also the amount of joy and what it does to represent the communities. And this one's actually in my constituency in Rosemount, so I'm quite happy about that. But yeah, just want to support 4.1 and 4.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you for permission to come in, Chair. In a way, I have a certain empathy, I think, with Councillor Doyle, because I'm the oldest band councillor. I would regard myself as a Philistine therein. And I suppose we are talking in terms of the Tinnies in particular here. But then someone did remind me that actually the Philistines were a very artistic race, as they were. So it's a mixed scenario. Certainly, 5.2 is to be totally lauded, because there's no point in putting these things up and leaving them to stand there. So 5.2 immensely needed if you're going to maintain and keep iconic landmarks and artworks that you have. If a report is coming through at some stage in the future, I'd like a couple of other art pieces to be included within the report. I'm mindful of the Cyan Mills, the loom worker, the mill worker at Cyan Mills, which sits in quite an open place in the village. I'm minded of the sports montage that we have in Donamana, again not lit. And I'm mindful of the Bridges River art piece that exists at the entrance to Newton Church. So perhaps going forward, those iconic pieces could be reported on as well as to the viability of enhancing their particular locations. Just a comment, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Eric. And I'm sure Aideen is scribbling furiously. Councillor Boyle, Michaela, you've already spoken on this item, and it's lasting a lot longer than I had initially anticipated. So I'm going to move on to Councillor Melling. Aileen?
And again, it was just to comments, and I know Councillor the council the whole church. People take it sometimes so I think that can't business and culture around the hardship property business and culture like the agenda. We would all love to scrap everything on council and let for this one thing. But underestimate the actually poverty, the poverty hard city industry.
Thanks for that, Aileen. And final speaker, I'll remind that to everybody on this item is Councillor Barr Raymond.
Thank you, Chair, for that, man. Very, very quickly, just in relation to what Councillor Doyle said there. You know, I think those comments just reinforce the view of people like myself when it comes to spending being disproportionate when it comes to Derry, the rural areas, and Strabane. So I don't think comments like that are very helpful.
Thanks for that. I just want to add something at the end. I understand where Councillor Doyle is coming from. These are large sums of money. The Tinnies has a special place in the heart of Strabane people, and it needs to be illuminated properly. And I have walked around the town for the last week or so at night, and I've seen the fantastic Christmas display that's on offer, the trees, the Santa, the snowmen, the gingerbread men, and it brightens up people's evenings. You see the smile on children's faces in these days of doom and gloom. It just shows how important sculptures and light are in people's lives. And I think this is something we should be actively pursuing. In terms of Stitch in Time, Councillor Cusack touched on it. This is the last remaining legacy we have of our very, very proud shirt making heritage. Hopefully in 6 months' time, we're not going to be saying that. Hopefully we've got the Factory Girls sculpture in place. But until that time, the Stitch in Time artwork on top of the Rosemount Factory is the only the only piece that's commemorating what the shirt factory workers did for this city. And it should be protected and it should be promoted. And I think it's money well spent. And we can fund a hardship fund, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't fund anything else at all. That's my view on the matter, and I think they are large sums of money, but it will be money well spent. So those are all the items that are open for decision. We've got items through 12 through 19, which are open for information. So I'm going to go through them one by one. If somebody would like to speak on them, if they could just indicate in the chat box. So item 12, the Business Innovation and Growth Programme. Item 13, Christmas 2020 update. Item 14, Strabane Business Improvement District. Item 15, ESF Year 3, Quarter 2 update. 16, the Golden Bridges 2020. 17, Piece 4 Independent Evaluation Appointment. 18, Startup Boot Camp. And 19, Tackling Social Poverty and Social Isolation Programme. So, Michaela, Councillor Boyle would like to come in on item 14. Take it away, Michaela.
Yeah, Chair, thank you for letting me. I just want to say, welcome the information and note the content of the report on item 14 on the Strabane bid. I just want to say that there's been great work done in relation to the bid in Strabane, and I want to, at this juncture, welcome the new Town Centre Manager, Emma, on board. A lot of good work is ongoing with the gift card, the shop window competition, and the buy-in from all businesses on the bid, even in these particularly challenging times, when obviously the vast majority of our businesses are closed. If you walk through the town centre on any given day, you will see all of the shops and the proprietors and getting ready for Friday, getting their shop windows dressed and taking pride in the place of where they operate their businesses. So kudos to everybody for doing that, and I want to thank Kevin also for the work that he's been doing with the businesses in Strabane and everybody involved in the stakeholder engagement and the forum as well too. So, I mean, the support local, shop local initiative has been fantastic. We want to do more to encourage people and footfall into our town centres. So I would ask council to endeavour whatever they can do to make people come out and stay local, shop local, and support their local businesses. This has been, as I say, a very challenging year for businesses, and we don't need to be going elsewhere other than our own front door to shop. And I just want to note the content of the report, and thanks to the council officers for the work that they're doing in this regard. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Michaela. So nobody else wants?
Chair, could I just speak on item 19? If nobody else is coming in on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just in terms of the item 19, I want to just welcome, you know, the applications for the Tackling Rural Poverty and Social Isolation programme, and welcome the report, or the content of the report. I know there's been an upsurge in demand for applications across the Sperrin DEA area. They've picked up from last year because they were very low last year. So obviously just want to ask, probably not get the information available now at this juncture, but if there was any figures for the Sperrin DEA, that would be appreciated if they could be forwarded on to ourselves, or if anybody has that information at hand. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Michaela. So that's the business that's open is now completed. So I'm going to propose, if I can get a proposer to go into confidential.
Chair, Alderman Ward.
Right. Okay. Can somebody confirm that we're now not broadcasting?